feel like for me, people call me out on my masculinity more in terms of my race than like, like, I mean, my feminist is a part of my race, but you know what I'm saying? Like, and so having to, like, that second guessing yourself, especially at like such a place at like Hampshire College, like, and how that, like, I feel like here it's so like put in these boxes, like you're this or you're this or you're this, so like my feminist can't exist like because I am like really masculine at times, and that's fine, and like I own that, and I feel like that's something that I've grown to like appreciate about my feminist, like is this like masculine, like sort of like assertive thing that I find, I don't think you can separate the two necessarily, and I feel like that at Hampshire, like why I stopped going to Fempire, why I like stopped being like a part of the reason why I like so much distance myself from like spaces like the QCA and like the Fempire is because I feel like it was either so like put in a box or too relative, and like you can't, I feel like there's not really a space here to like embrace and like celebrate the like having both all the time, and like I just wonder, you should go to Spence.
Even like just like being a woman like has been such like a part of like my experience as a person, and I feel like that's like also something that like kind of gets lost in like the queer community here, is like how like just being a woman is so much of like what I am, and I feel like there's no place to really like talk about that.
The one thing I do want to say is that like I am on, you know, Prozac, which is like what we named after earlier, which like definitely fucks up my shit. But in like ways that I can't even really make sense of, because I also have PTSD, so that also fucks up my shit. So it's kind of like, I don't really know what's fucking up my shit, I just know it's not really working, or sometimes I think it's working and then I don't know afterwards. So, you know, that's definitely real, but like, that being said, I know that for myself, I, you know, definitely fluctuate in the ways that I like to be touched, and yeah, sometimes it's like, oh, I'm a switch, woo, but like, one of the things that, you know, is really important to me is to be able to fuck somebody, and you know, maybe my partner is a dude, but what if he's on his back? So what, it doesn't mean, you know, like you're saying, like, that, you know, he's being masculine. No, I'm just saying, you know, like you said, you know, that it's not necessarily me emasculating him or being less femme by, like, fucking somebody, you know, and maybe I don't want to be touched, and maybe I'm the one wearing a dick or whatever, but it doesn't mean that I'm not a femme. And so I guess, you know, I think that that's, you know, kind of builds off of that, you know, false notion of like femmes as passive, or just women as like being on their backs or whatever else. But I also don't think that like just because like I'm the one who's fucking and like my partner's on the back makes me not a femme and makes them, you know, the one who's like passive per se. Like I definitely don't think that I, you know, tying into what you were saying before about like power bottoming and like when your radical concepts, because I never heard that before either. But you know, I just think that that's a space that isn't really talked about, and you know, again, like going back to those conversations about what people like to present, and then how people actually practice, or maybe the, you know, how those things interact. I just know that just because I don't like to be touched does not mean that I'm not a femme, and you know, just because like it depends who I want to touch me in what context, like again, doesn't mean that I'm any less of a femme unless that's how I'm feeling personally. It has, you know, nothing to do with how I'm being touched, or I hope and I try to make it to not be about how I'm being touched. I mean, sometimes that shit gets blurry too, but too funny.
The end.